I'd like to call the order of the committee of the whole for May 25th at 4:30 p.m. Roll call.
Alderman Madden.
Here.
Alderman Kubaki.
Here.
Alderman Engelhardt.
Here.
Alderman Kapusta.
Here.
Alderman Terrence.
Here.
Alderman Hamel.
Here.
Alderman Wolf.
Here.
And Mayor Petpolsky. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Statement of public notice.
This meeting was noticed in accordance with the open meeting law.
Approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor of the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Approval of the minutes from April 27th.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Moving on to new business, discuss health insurance options. In front of you, Sharon has passed out our insurance renewals. And Sharon, do you want to come up to the microphone and I'll kind of walk us through this, but jump in when I start going off the tracks here a little bit. So you'll see four columns. One that says current rates, effective last year. So that's what we're paying right now. The column next to it is what the renewal came back at if we keep everything the same. And that's the one that says status quo, current plan, 10% contribution. And then after that, there's another option that we could do. So one of the things that we're looking at is trying to control costs would be to give the employees an option for two different policies that they could pick from. Option one would continue with their 10% contribution that they're paying now. It's essentially the same plan that they have now, with the exception of there's a separate sheet here that says WPS on top that has a list of providers, and those providers are not part of that option one coverage. The main one being in there that most people would identify with would be the freighter network. Next to it on that column, you also see the dollar amount in claims that were paid last year. Now, the 373 could be misleading, because I'll tell you, when I went through my cancer, that was my bill. So it could be one person. So it doesn't necessarily mean that a lot of people are using it, but it could be. All I can tell you is that that's the dollar amount from each. So then option two would be essentially what they have now for coverage, same providers, and they could pick that, but they would have to pay a 2% premium, increase 2%, so they'd be paying 12% of their premium cost on that. If you look at that, now we don't know how that would break down as far as which employees would take option one and which employees would take option two. But for instance, if it were a 50-50 break where half would pay the extra and go with the existing program and half would want to just go with the less expensive program, it would be about a wash for the city as far as what we're paying for health insurance this year versus next year. If everyone were to switch over to option one, there's about an $87,000 savings in health insurance. If everyone were to go with option two, it's about an $84,000 increase. So I'll leave it open for discussion at this point, or questions. Did I miss anything, Sharon?
No, we did start off with a 9% increase due to experience. We were able to negotiate down 2%, a little bit.
We also have had discussions trying to, last year we talked about maybe seeing if we could join the school district's policy for their self-insurance. Without beating around the bush, they don't want us. We're not a healthy group.
Okay.
That could change in the future, but right now we just, our numbers just don't play out for that. Questions, anyone?
What does the asterisk mean on the WPS sheet?
The asterisks on
in-network. There's an asterisk at the top one, not at the rest.
Yeah, there was an asterisk on the very first one and a cross on.
Oh, where it says no in-network?
Yeah.
I can go grab the original form where
Okay.
all that were in network at the bottom.
All right. We'll get that for you.
So if they stayed with the 10% column, one right next to the 2020, the first one 2021,
If we.
it would increase $1,182 per employee? That's what they would, is that what it's saying there?
You mean if we just went forward with the status quo?
Right.
And the basic increase?
Just moved over to the next column. Here. I see 1182 on there.
No, annually if you look in the bottom section, like right below where it says 10% employee contribution, under renewal, so the annual increased costs are listed there. So if they have a family plan, their annual cost, if with the status quo, would go up $231.
Oh, that's by the employee. The 1182 is by the employer?
That's the entire, all the participants.
All of them? Okay, gotcha.
Which one's mine? I think that one was. I have no idea.
Now, during this whole process, I had reached out to a couple of the municipalities to see what they had for plans, and they're really all over the board as far as some of them get, lack of a better term, creative as far as incentivizing people to go to more economical plans or requiring them to do the HSAs and things like that. My recommendations and thoughts on that is that's something we have a new HR person going to be coming on board in third quarter. I think that'd be something for them to dive into and more of their expertise and more time frame to dive into all of that. So, that's something we could be looking forward to the following year possibly. But that type of research I think takes quite a bit to get into. I just looked at a couple, Waukesha, New Berlin, and Brookfield to see what they had.
So currently they're paying 10% contribution, right?
Correct.
The asterisk means it's a medically necessary service, is covered with prior approval, and the cross means there's a contract in process with that one.
What does that mean in English?
A contract in process would be that they would be covered.
Okay.
Sign with them. As far as the asterisk, that would mean that
Pre-approval.
if you get approval or you get referred from your doctor.
Okay.
And get both of them.
So like if I had something rare and the only specialist was at Freighter and and I have the other plan and they approve that, then they would cover it.
Right.
Okay. Feedback or thoughts? Direction?
Let me ask this. Do we look at, because I know a lot of companies are going to a spousal surcharge. Also, some companies are going to programs, because this is happening to me, where if your spouse has insurance and you are offered insurance, your spouse cannot be on your insurance. I think that approach is a little drastic, but have we looked at a spousal surcharge? Because I know, what is it we pay employees if they don't take insurance with us?
We do just the opposite.
$400 a month for family. There's a tiered program. It goes all the way down to $95 per month, depending on what category. Like if you're eligible for single and you opt nothing, and so on. But the top is $400 per month for family. So if you're eligible for family and you don't take anything, that's what you would get.
I'll tell you, no, we did not specifically, this group, go look at, what you're talking about. I did look at that when we were at the school district. The one thing I can tell you is we are in the people business. Our benefits program is one of the things that we can attract people with. And looking at like some positions right now we're trying to fill, I'm not sure if I'd go that route. I think I'd rather look at other things before we do that.
And I think with the spousal surcharge too, if you look at it, it's like $25 a month in the whole scheme of things. That's not a large savings.
It's not a large savings on our end, and it's not.
Yeah, it's not a large cost on either side. So I don't know if that makes sense. It's just a lot, a couple of things I've noticed in the private sector that.
Yeah,
They're
and
doing
the other
a lot.
way you were talking about, like for spouses that are offered insurance through their employer, like they would be like forcing them to take that. The issue with that is where do you draw the line? So like where my wife works today, she has to cover, if she can go under insurance plan, but they pay half of it. So is that really considered being offered insurance? And, so you kind of look at that of,
That would be
what
considered
levels.
offered insurance.
Well, it is, but I mean, there's, so what if they offer and they pay 10% of it? Yeah, they're still offering it, but they're only paying 10% of the premium. So it's kind of, we have to draw a line on that.
Right. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. Another thought is, maybe I'm wrong. I think it's unique that we pay people not to take ours.
It's getting to be unique.
No, that's not.
Okay.
For government, it's not.
Okay, so a thought is, what happens if we pay them more? How many more people would not take it and go on their spouse's insurance? I think that's a question that doesn't have an answer at this time, and,
I honestly, because we did have quite a jump up in family. We went up from 32 family to 42 just in 1 year. So I think it's becoming more popular to transition towards health insurance versus the allowance. We've never tried bumping it up. I think the last time, was well over 10, 15 years ago. But we could always take a poll, I guess, and see if
I think that's probably
employees would
because
be interested.
we offer better insurance.
No, I agree.
I'm sure it is, yeah.
And that's one of the things that attract people to work here.
Well, I like offering the option. It's fair to the city, it's fair to the employee. To me, it just makes a whole lot of sense to go along with this.
Okay, you said 3 options, so
So
staying.
there's 2 options.
Two options.
So
did you
the
say
one
2?
option,
they have
You
the
said 3.
choice.
the one option is status quo, move forward, pay the additional premium. The other option we're presenting is that the employees have a choice between 2 options.
I like giving them a choice.
I do too. I mean,
nice
quite
to
honestly, I'd like to get to a point where we could have
more.
like 4 choices.
Right.
You know,
I think we're a little bit limited by size.
our administrators don't like that idea, but
You pay codes, we'd have to.
At least we get.
But I mean, you think about it, if you had, think of some of the guys in public works, these young kids that are 20-some years old, they don't really care. They should care, but they don't care about their insurance. They're going to take whatever costs them the least every month, given that option. The old guys like me that have,
There's more to it than that.
health issues, I'll pay more.
Yeah, give them the option would be the route I would go.
Think before you leave, just think before you work.
Any other questions, or can I do a straw poll?
I like the option.
All right, Eileen,
Option.
Option.
Kevin, option. Tom?
Option.
All right. Marching orders, good?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Discuss sanitary sewer and water main extension along Loomis Drive. We have a presentation tonight.
Hey guys, how's it going? So, what we're trying to do is give you a big picture of what's going on and why we're going to talk about this, because there's things that are going to be coming down your way that you should be aware of. So, looking at the comp plan, the biggest thing is basically we're talking about, yep, sure, no problem.
Can you see there?
Can you guys see?
Because you probably could move it quite a bit more, and I think you'll still be able to see.
Put it in the middle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
There you go.
All right. That's good. So the big area that we're talking about is right here is where Champions Village entranceway. Everyone knows where that is. So we're kind of talking about this whole area from here, kind of coming down here. It's our last real good piece of commercial development that you can see. And why we're now talking about it here is the first one, which is kind of on your screen, the Glen and Muskego Lakes, that's coming. And as the next ones are coming, our water and our sanitary stop here. So how do we make sure that we have utilities so the city can be enticing commercial to develop this area? So we're looking, water's easy. We upsize the water so that we can service the areas down the way. But for sanitary sewer, when we upsize it, we can do two ways. One's gravity. It's easy, you flush your toilets, all the way go down. The next option is doing lift stations, or a third way is to do a hybrid, and to do both gravity and looking at lift stations. So why this is important is because our method to make sure that we have the large pipes is we do reimbursements. So the first one will be coming once we finish the DA. We're not there yet, we're still in negotiations, so we don't have prices. But what I'm sharing with everyone is in order to get this whole thing developed, we're looking at upsizing the water main to 16-inch and sanitary sewer to 15-inch. So that's kind of like the overall picture why we're talking to you now about this and showing how much area we're going to be able to develop, but to let you know in a month when these DAs come and there's very larger than normal charges for reimbursement for water main and sewer, you're not like, why are we doing this? Or what's going on? So that's kind of just an overall big picture. Any questions before we kind of just go into just kind of like looking at this?
Well, you mentioned the word larger, so are you talking 25%, 50%, 100%?
No, we just do the reimbursement cost.
Yeah,
Similar,
but we're going to put money up front, right? So how much more are we going to spend up front to upsize the pipes? Just roughly, is there a percentage?
I do not have a percentage. You'll see the first one, and I don't want to say that because we're still in negotiation. Usually what we do is like, I'll give you an example. When we did Quick Trip, and we did about 1,000 linear feet of water main, we upsized it from 1,000 linear feet, we upsized it from 8-inch to 16-inch. That was a $70,000 bill. Just to kind of give you an idea.
So that was
for the total bill.
How many linear feet was that one?
About 1,000.
And how long is this?
So just for the water main, just to let you know, it's about 3,000. So I'm just, now remember too, when we do this, we charges RCA charges and WCA charges, and we have our fund that helps us replenish these funds. So we're running out of commercial space in Muskego. I know we hardly have any commercial development in Muskego, but we don't have much space left, and 36 is really our last viable next fresh ground area. But as we all know, development follows the length of the sewer pipe, and there's an upfront cost to make it happen there. So. And just to let you know, you guys can see what's coming in Franklin. It's just going to follow down. But why it's important to again let you know is, the first one's here, and more people are beginning to start talking to us about this corridor. So it's kind of letting everyone know what's happening.
And then there's reimbursement once a company goes in or somebody develops an area, then.
RCA charges and WCA charges, which is for water and sanitary sewer hookup.
So, okay.
All right? Just kind of.
So the cornerstone development requires 8-inch, and we're going to 15s and 16s.
15s and
That's-
16s.
Yeah, to service that new area.
Correct.
Which makes sense, yeah.
All
Okay.
right? No matter what, guys, if we just end it at 8-inch and 8-inch, we're done. We just end that line right there, and we can't develop anything.
Without tearing up the pipe and redoing it.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to make sure everyone's clear on that, so. And that's why we did this. This is kind of a big plan, so.
Well, that's kind of what happened on Janesville when the senior homes went in, and then Quick Trip
Correct.
went in after that.
Correct, it's just kind of doing this. This is just a bigger picture where there's.
We'll do it up front instead of waiting for that to happen. Okay.
Yeah, and it's coming. It's at the beginning part of this development, which,
It's a longer run than we're accustomed to doing.
Yeah.
It's empty right now, yeah.
yeah. All right, Mike or Derek, who I want to just talk about.
So hi, my name is Derek Bushman. I'm a civil engineer with Graith. So this development came into the city that you're seeing on the screen right now, the Glen at Muskego. And basically, like Scott had said, it's the start of, there's no sanitary sewer on Loomis Road right here. So looking at what they had proposed, we did an analysis. of their proposed plans. This was an 8-inch sanitary sewer. So we said, okay, if the city would like to develop further west, what are some options that would need to be done to further serve any future development? So we looked at a number of different alternatives, and talking with Scott and Scott, kind of the recommended approach that we landed on was, if you look at this exhibit here, you can kind of see that outlined in the red is the Glen and Muskego estates. So we kind of zoomed out here, and then using kind of a slightly modified alignment for their sanitary sewer that they proposed, we upsized the sanitary sewer that would first run through the Glen and then eventually run further down west Loomis Road. And this is just using kind of minimum code requirements. And ultimately, we came up with an area of approximately 340 acres. So it's that area highlighted in orange that would potentially be served by gravity sewer. Okay, and then any additional area, so if you see a little bit north of that, that purple highlighted area, this area could eventually be served by a lift station as well. So it could be pumped into the gravity line that we would be extending, and then ultimately discharging just east of the Glen and Muskego Estates. Cover everything pretty good?
Any questions?
Any questions on that?
Are we good?
Does this anticipate a total build out of that area, or is it
Well,
partway? Or
it allows it to be built out. You know, how soils and everything else are, you know, how much of that gets built out, but it would definitely, the main point of emphasis on it is the 36 corridor, how much farther out it
to make
expands
it
from
so
there.
we have a corridor?
Yeah.
So we really don't anticipate how long we're good for with this either.
No,
It's impossible
as far
to
as
say.
that's all built on economic appetite.
But this is more of a move than we've made in the past on some of these areas.
And the reason why is because the pipe's already going to be run, because the Glen going there, they're going to pay for it. So for that part of it, it'd be foolish for us not to take advantage
Sure.
of that main infrastructure and just have to pay for the upsizing to that point. That's half the run. Not doing it, I think, would cap the development. That it would never happen. So that may be a
not for a
direction
while.
this council wants to go. I wouldn't recommend it, but. So. Any other questions? Everyone understand? All right.
So when are we proposing starting this?
When is the Glen gonna start construction?
So just to let everyone know, right now they have a land disturbance permit. The silt fence is up. They're already grading work. They already got pipe out there. I believe probably the developer's agreement, probably within the next month, is going to be all presented to you guys. In that developer's agreement, like everything, that's where we show the reimbursement for the water main. That's where we show the reimbursement for the sanitary sewer. And why we're kind of letting you know is it's more like, hey, I'm not shocked by what's going on here. And this is the ultimate game plan of us following the comp plan and what's coming along. So.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on. Do you want to get Ray and we're going to start the municipal judge interview questions. Is anyone? I got water in front of all of you, so I'll explain the process and the rules once Mr. Schrank gets in here.
Shrinks first.
In front of you should have everyone's resumes and application letters as well. If you're more comfortable, Ray, you can pull a chair up and sit down and just take the microphone. It might be better. Yeah, so if you want to pull that out at least. So the one request is, just pull it out and hand it to him. Welcome. I'm Rick Petfalski. Let's see. Here, we can set it up for you.
Oh, look at that.
Turn it around. There you go.
I think you got it backwards.
Are you sure? Okay.
Just hold it. That's fine.
There we go.
All right.
Flips the other way.
Mayor Rick Petfalski, thank you for coming tonight. Actually, I think we'll just start from Alderman Wolf. You want to introduce yourself and just come on down the line. We'll introduce who everyone is here. Say your name.
Alderman Wolf in the first district.
Bob Hamill, 2nd District.
John Terrence, District 3.
I'm Tom Kapusta, District 4.
I'm Jeff Ward, Shield City Attorney.
John Engelhardt, District 5.
Kevin Kubaki, District 6.
Eileen Madden, District 7.
Thanks for coming in. So what we have in front of, or what we're going to be doing is each alderman's going to be asking you a question, and myself. You respond to the question. Once we go through the list, there's 8 questions that we'll be asking you. And after we ask those questions, any alderman may have a follow-up question to ask you as well. And they'll take notes. After your interview process is done, you're welcome to stay back in that room there. And after we go through all the candidates, the alderman will be doing balloting on who their selection is. It will take a majority of the council. So if, for instance, the votes come through where one candidate gets 3, one gets 2, and one gets 1, the top 2 vote getters would then go into a runoff vote between us. If the unfortunate situation comes where it's like a 3-2-2 vote, we'll have to re-vote on that one until we have 2 front runners, and then those 2 will go into a runoff. So that's the process. Any questions?
All right.
All right. So Alderman Wolf, you have the first question.
How you doing?
Fine.
Good, good. Why are you interested in a position of becoming a municipal judge, and why did you apply for this position?
I've lived in Muskego since 1993 and my current house since 1995. I've been involved in other activities relating to the city of Muskego. I was on the Muskego Norway School Board for 9 years. I was president for 4 of those years. It's a time in my practice when I think I would have time to devote to this, and I think I can be of service to the community.
Thank you. I have these backwards, but Alderman Terrence, you're next.
Sorry. How's it going?
Fine.
Good. Tell us about your background and how you feel it would help you as a municipal judge.
Well, I don't know how far you want me to go back, because in 2020, I had the fortune of celebrating 50 years of practicing law. So I've been doing this a long time. If we go way, way back to when I first graduated from law school, I was a prosecutor in Sheboygan County, assistant DA. I was there for a period of time, and then I actually was one of the original public defenders under a Ford Foundation grant that led to the current public defender program that's operated throughout the state. Since roughly 1975, I've been in private practice. For a period of time, I did exclusively plaintiff's personal injury work. In 2003, I opened up a practice, solo practice, because the firm I was with merged. We went from 5 lawyers. They were merged with a firm of 80 lawyers from Madison, and I did not think that would be a good mix for me. And my practice has always been kind of individual as to what I was doing. When I went into my own practice in 2003, it became more of a general practice. So I did some municipal law, primarily ordinance violations of the traffic type, although I've done some other ordinance violations. Continued to do some personal injury and began to do a lot of family and other types of law. In approximately 2012, I began to devote some time to pro bono work and developed an interest in immigration. So I volunteer and still volunteer to do pro bono work in the area of immigration, where we're representing families who are trying to get status here. Where that bears upon the municipal judgeship is that people without a social security number, as you know, can't get a driver's license, and they frequently will appear in court because of that fact. My daughter, Kristen, who was an assistant Milwaukee County District Attorney for 7 years, joined me in 2015, and we've been practicing together ever since. It is my hope that I will go of counsel on January 1, freeing up more time to do things like being with my grandchildren as well as being a municipal judge. Again, it's a keen interest in the law. Obviously, I've been doing this for 50 years. I'm still doing it. So I have an active interest in the law. I continue to learn from it. It hopefully keeps me somewhat mentally alert. And so it's a desire to branch out and do something I haven't done before and of which I think I have vast experience to be able to lend some credence to that position.
Hello, good evening. What qualities do you believe make a successful municipal judge, and how would you use them in your position?
I think the most important quality is the ability to listen and also to be respectful of all of the parties who are present in court. For many people, it is the first time they've ever appeared in any kind of court or had any contact with a judge deciding an issue that primarily has to do with a police citation of some kind. I think the ability to listen, to understand, to have compassion, and very importantly, to show respect to all the parties, because the most important thing is not that you are the judge. The most important thing is that people believe that the process was fair and that people listen to them in the process.
Thanks.
Well, this question ties right in with that.
Okay.
It says, how would you handle a defendant who complains that your decisions or rulings are unfair?
Well, I mean, obviously, doing this as long as I have, there have been occasions where clients have thought that the decision was unfair, unreasonable, and you do politely, but you have to take control of the courtroom. You have to tell them that the decision is the decision. It's not something that's going to be argued or debated once it's made. And if they truly feel aggrieved, they have remedies by going to the circuit court if they choose to that opportunity. But they cannot or should not have an opportunity to debate you over the validity of your decision. Once the decision is made, there has to be finality to the process.
Good afternoon.
Good evening or afternoon or whatever it is.
Glad to have you here. What do you hope to accomplish in your if you're brought to this position as a municipal judge?
That's an interesting question, and I've thought about that. You know, just what exactly would this do for me? And I think, again, tying in with the last question, I think the ability to be fair, I think the ability to potentially help people who are in difficult situations to come up with alternative ways that you can resolve the issues. And I think, again, expanding my legal knowledge are all things that I would gain from this position.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Attorney Schrank, how would you handle defendants who are unable to pay on time or even unable to pay their fines at all?
Yeah, it's, you know, the inability to pay fines is a tough one. I mean, certainly the law provides that they're given a certain amount of time and they can work out a payment plan, and I think you have to try to deal with them and work out a payment plan. Eventually, if they cannot make the payments at all, you have to enforce the judgment that was entered. But I think you need to give them every opportunity to come up with a payment plan that works for them, that's also reasonable and accomplishes the goal of receiving the funds by the city.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
The city of Muskego has many different ordinances, some of which you may feel are overly onerous. How will you judicate ordinances violations you feel are unfair?
Well, first of all, I don't pretend to know all of the Muskego ordinances, so and I'm sure there are some that are very onerous, and I'm sure there are some that are extremely broad. I don't feel that my job is to determine the validity of the ordinance. My job is to determine whether or not the facts that are presented to me comply with what that ordinance says. So if the ordinance is overly vague and they can't present facts that comply with the vague ordinance, then they should not be found guilty for that. However, if the facts support a finding of guilt, then that finding has to be made. But I do not view the position of the municipal judge of one that's going to decide the validity of a particular ordinance at any time.
Okay, thank you.
I get the last question.
Of course you do.
If appointed, what are your thoughts about running for this position in the next election?
Yeah, and I've also given thought to that. And of course, I can't answer with any finality what that would be. I can tell you that I would like to see how I did in the position, how I was received as a judge. I certainly would be open to running in April when that election came up. If for some reason or other it didn't seem like a good fit, I would elect not to run. I didn't really answer your question, but I don't know how I can answer something in April when I haven't even tried being a judge for a while.
Fair enough. Does anyone have any follow-up questions for Mr. Schrank? If not, this is your opportunity to do any closing statements you'd like to make to the council?
Well, I think that I come before you with a vast amount of legal experience. And so one could ask yourself, why, after practicing 50 years, do you want to be a municipal judge? Because you've probably done most of the things you ever wanted to do in your legal career. You're doing some pro bono work. Maybe it's time to wind down a little bit and let other people do it. And I believe that I still have the ability to benefit the city of Muskego by using some of my legal talent as a municipal judge. And so because of that and because of my desire to give back to the community, I applied for this and consider it an honor if I should get appointed.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
You bet.
You were the first of 4 candidates, and if you want to wait in the room until afterwards, or go home and watch on YouTube, you're welcome to do either. There is water back there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Judge Grogan will escort you back and bring the next candidate in.
Who will be?
Yes. Who will be?
Who's next, Rick?
Michael Sessa.
Okay.
You guys should take a lot of notes. You should take a lot of notes.
Wow.
I'm used
And
to
he may not be here yet because we said 5:15.
Yeah,
So
I'm used to interviewing interns,
Okay.
so that's
Oh, okay.
why I do that.
You're a good note taker. Do you ever sell those? Nobody publishes.
She didn't need one.
Said no, but you publish them.
What?
I said no, but you publish them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. So look at the mirrors too.
What?
She's like,
Rick, you gotta stop sharing beer at lunch.
I was using that one.
And it was kind of usually wet.
Yeah.
I stepped off my boat.
Eileen, can you grab me one?
Trailer.
And I can return my pen back to Carrie.
Oh, you can
into my car.
She's getting me one.
Oh.
You're kidding.
That's not one of those free city ones that are going to end in like.
Okay.
Yeah, you see my back, it's all black and blue.
And you got bruised here.
Thank you.
It's weird because I know it.
Wow.
So I'm thinking, am I gonna have the same back problems that our city attorney has? I hope not. I hope not.
And I felt like
Hi.
Good evening. Good.
You gotta turn
That
it
might
on.
be turned off, yeah. And if you want, you can stick it in the thing or you can hold it, or as long as we can hear you through it and people.
I think that holder's upside down.
Is it?
Flip it up.
I might have.
I'll hold it. Don't worry about it.
I'm Mayor Rick Petfalski. Welcome. I'm going to have the aldermen start on that end and just introduce themselves coming around. Starting.
Alderman Rob Wolf, 1st District.
Bob Hamill, 2nd District.
John Terrence, 3rd District.
I am Tom Kapusta, District 4.
I'm Jeff Ward, City Attorney.
John Engelhardt, District 5.
Kevin Kubaki, District 6.
Eileen Madden, District 7.
Welcome. So the way the process will work tonight is each of the aldermen and myself will ask you one question. At the end of those questions, anyone will have an opportunity for a follow-up question for you. After the follow-up questions, or if there is no follow-up questions, then you'll have an opportunity to do like a closing statement. And after that, you'll go back. You can either wait in the room 1A or meeting room 2, meeting room 2 for us to go through the process and vote. What will happen after all the candidates have been interviewed, we will do a vote. The top 2 vote getters will then go into provided no one gets a majority. With 4 candidates, one person could get a majority vote. If they get a majority vote, that will be the person that will be appointed. If for some reason the vote were to come in with 3 for one, 2 for another, and 1 for another candidate, or 3, 3, 2, 1, something like that, where there's not a majority, the top 2 vote getters will then go into a runoff vote between us, and the top vote getter would then be the one that would be appointed. As we had stated in the notice, the appointment is from now until August, or not August, from August until next April. And at that point, you would, the person that's appointed would choose to run for the remainder of the full term at that point. So, any questions?
No.
All right. We will start with Alderman Wolf.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good, good. Why are you interested in the position of becoming a municipal judge, and why did you apply for this position?
When I became aware that the position, I was obviously aware that the position was going to be opened, but in terms of the timing and applying at this point in time, first and foremost, it was really a unique opportunity, I think, to serve the community in which I live. I think that the role of a municipal judge, like so many other roles of local government, have a direct impact on, the quality of life that we all experience here in this community. And so for me, it was primarily a desire to serve in my community. Certainly in my background, I've had experience in the courtroom. It's been many years since I have been in the courtroom, and I'm happy to go into, that detail with you as well. But courtroom experience is what really drove me to go to law school in the beginning. I never really enjoyed being a litigator at the end of the day. But just the process is something that I very much enjoyed. I found it very challenging and stimulating, and something that, to have an opportunity to, really be engaged in that again in the local community is something that certainly has intrigued me.
Thank you. Now, we're going to, because of the way I wrote these, we're going to go a little bit out of order, but.
Right here. How's it going? Good. So to build off of that, looking at your background, how do you feel it will help you as a municipal judge? Sure. Well, obviously, my background, I think as I applied, I thought to myself, well, who is the typical applicant probably for this role? And typically, I would think that you're going to find litigators, in all likelihood, applying for this particular position, prosecutors, defense attorneys, things of that nature. And I think that does make perfect sense at the end of the day, given their courtroom experience and things of that nature. My experience is obviously very different. I've spent the last 17 years working in a role in which my courtroom experience was that of petitioner and in most cases a witness in trust and estate matters on behalf of the trustee. But I do have courtroom experience. I mean, what drove me again to law school was spending 2 years working with the juvenile court system in Dayton, Ohio, and working with juvenile offenders. I spent time in law school clerking for Judge Jeffrey Kremers, who just recently retired, I think, a couple of years ago. So I spent time clerking with him, observing court proceedings, things of that nature. And yes, I did spend 4 years in private practice doing criminal defense work, representing clients before administrative hearings. And I particularly spent a lot of time doing post-conviction and appellate work. And so, again, I really enjoyed the challenge of examining court records, examining process, preparing briefs and arguments for the Court of Appeals, things of that nature.
But for the last 17 years, my role has been quite different, but I think it, in a way, uniquely qualifies me in some respects to serve in this role, because I think this is a role in which you are dealing with the public in maybe not so great circumstances all the time. People are coming in, they might be angry, they might be pro se, they are not necessarily represented by attorneys, and they're confused. And in my current role, I spend most of my time, frankly, dealing with very complicated trust matters, dealing with beneficiaries, where the decisions that we're making day in and day out, we're not advocating positions, we're actually making decisions that are impacting the beneficiaries that we're working with in very, very significant ways at times, dealing with very significant dollars and things of that nature, whether or not a beneficiary is going to be able to invest in a business or things of that nature. It's very important for us to apply strictly the terms of the trust and the grantor's intent to that particular beneficiary situation in a very compassionate and in a way in which we're sometimes delivering news that beneficiaries are not always appreciating. And so in many respects, I deal with some very, very difficult clients and challenging situations in which we're making decisions that they're not particularly in favor of or that they necessarily like at the end of the day. But we have to find a way to communicate that in a way that's educating them, in a way that's putting ourselves in their shoes to some degree and appreciating the impact that the decision that we're making has on them in a very personal and sometimes a very important way. So it's a very unique sort of role that I'm in what I've been doing for the last 17 years. But in some respects, I think there are some parallels in terms of the working with people and having the appreciation of making decisions that are impacting their lives personally.
Good evening.
Good evening.
What qualities do you believe make a successful municipal judge, and how would you see them in the position?
Sure. Well, I think back to my time in private practice, and I think most people would probably answer the first thing in any judge would be a good judicial temperament. And I kind of hearken back to when I was in private practice, appearing before a particular judge in Milwaukee County that was known to be a bit challenging and difficult to appear before. And what I appreciated about appearing before this particular judge on this one occasion was the fact that the judge had some patience with me as a very new and very green attorney. And turned it more into a learning experience for me, while I was also there very concerned and worried about protecting the rights of my client. So having patience, being a good listener, obviously having an understanding of the law and applying the law, and obviously, again, the courage to do what is right, even though it might be the difficult thing to do. So those are just a few of the characteristics that I think are important of any judge.
Thank you.
Well, welcome.
Hello.
How would you handle a defendant who complains that your decision or rulings are unfair?
Well, I think what I would need to do in that situation is simply calmly explain to them that they have a right to appeal our decision and to take that to the circuit court and have my ruling at that point in time reviewed. So it's, in my mind, it's that is what the option is, and if you can calmly explain that to the individual that's standing before you, and that there is another opportunity for them to pursue that on appeal, but that's what their right is.
Hello.
Hello.
What do you hope to accomplish in your tenure as a municipal judge?
That's a good question. I guess I would hope from a personal level, again, I think it would really be a desire to, again, serve. Again, it's a desire to engage with the public, I think, as well in a positive way. If there were things that could be done within the municipal court system potentially that could be improved upon, I don't know that. But there might be ways in which there could be efficiencies or other, improvements built into the system. If that was something that, would be a prerogative of the municipal court judge to pursue, then that would be something that I would look to do. But at the end of the day, I would hope that what I would have accomplished is, again, doing the right thing by the people that are appearing before me, treating people fairly with patience, and just seeing that the law is fulfilled when it's all said and done.
Thank you.
Greetings. Attorney Sessa, how would you handle defendants who are either unable to pay their fines on time or even unable to pay them at all?
Well, I think under the under the law, we have the opportunity for them to either receive extensions of time for them to pay their fines. I think it's probably standard to give someone 60 days or longer to pay their fines. I think it's also standard, if I'm not mistaken, for them to have the opportunity to potentially engage in an installment plan to pay their fines. If they are truly indigent, there might be other options for them, including community service to satisfy their forfeitures. So I think it's either extensions of times, hopefully, or installment plans or community service. I think it's best to pursue other options to facilitate a way for individuals to meet their obligations based on the ordinance violation, rather than immediately necessarily jumping to suspending licenses and things of that nature. I also understand that we can send individuals to collections and things of that nature as well if it was required.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. So the city of Muskego has many different ordinances, some of which you may feel are overly onerous. How will you adjudicate ordinance violations if you are feeling they're unfair?
Well, I don't know that it's for the judge sitting in that position to make the determination whether or not a particular ordinance is fair or not. At the end of the day, I think it is the question really of is this ordinance violation being fairly applied to the person being charged with the violation based on the facts and circumstances surrounding that particular case. I think you have to simply follow the facts, and then you apply the facts to the law, and that's what you have to do. So I don't. So in my mind, that's the approach that I would take.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You get me last. You get me last. Michael, how do you pronounce your last name?
Sessa.
Okay, we were doing it right. Okay. So if you are appointed, what are your thoughts about running for this position at the next election?
Well, I think if I'm here and I was appointed, then in all likelihood it would be, my goal and desire to continue and to run for election, if that's what, if appointed, yes.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any follow-ups for Mr. Sessa? Seeing none, do you have a closing statement you'd like to make?
I didn't have any closing statement prepared or anything along those lines. But I guess I would just say again, yes, my experience is different. It's unique. It's not that of the litigator who's been working with the traffic code and things of that nature for the last 20 years or anything along those lines. But I think it's an experience that would bring an appropriate temperament, an appropriate compassion, an appropriate approach to working with the citizens of the community as they appear before the municipal court. Certainly, again, I've had experience in the courtroom, so I'm very familiar with procedure, laws, rules of evidence, and things of that nature. And so it would be an exciting opportunity to have the chance to serve the community in this particular role and to be engaged with the community in that fashion. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much. You're welcome to wait in room 2 while we go through the other interviews, and then come back in while we vote. Thank you. Judge Gorgon will walk you back there. Shelley, we're a little bit ahead of schedule, so I'm just going to go into recess for a little bit, and when Ms. Warwick gets in here, then we can go forward. I'm going to put us in recess for at least 10 minutes.
Didn't work. None of these are in my districts.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
Hello.
I'll take a seat right here.
Perfect.
Good spot.
And if the mic isn't on, you can turn it on.
I don't tap it. Nope.
No.
There you go.
That's your first test.
That was the second
I think
one.
I failed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, it doesn't, there we go.
It never stays in there very well.
Thank you, Mayor Petzbalski.
Thanks for coming, Mrs. Warwick. So the way the process will work tonight is each of the aldermen and myself will each ask you one question. Anyone will have an opportunity to ask you a follow-up question afterwards. And then once we're done with follow-ups, or if there are no follow-ups, you'll have an opportunity to do a closing statement. After which you will either vacate the room back to the room you came from, or you can go home and watch on YouTube if you want. But after we go through all the candidates, the alderman will vote. I don't get to vote. And if the first round of voting has a majority vote of council, that person will be the appointee. If, for instance, the vote comes in at 3-2, well, it has 3-2 or 3-3-2-1. I don't know. A non-majority vote, the top 2 vote getters would then go into a runoff vote for the alderman to select from. If for some reason the vote were to come in at a tie that there isn't a clear top 2, they have to keep voting till there are top 2, and then there'll be a runoff after that. So I think that should cover everything. We're going to start, just introduce everyone here, and we'll start on that end.
Alderman Rob Wolf, District 1.
Bob Hamill, District 2.
John Terrence, District 3.
Tom Kapusta, District 4.
I'm Jeff Warchill, City Attorney.
John Engelhardt, District 5.
Kevin Kubaki, District 6.
Eileen Madden, District 7.
Nice to see you all this evening.
And Alderman Wolf will start with the questions.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Why are you interested in this position of becoming a municipal judge, and why did you apply for this position?
Well, timing's everything, right? So last week, Thursday, I retired after 30 years at the United States Attorney's Office, where I spent almost all my legal career. I didn't know what would come next until my husband walked into the room with his phone with a Facebook post by the mayor and said, I think you should read this because I think you would be a great candidate for this position. So I read it through and skeptically looked at him and said, what? I'm finishing my career. He's like, Lisa, you've been on school board, you know how to run for things. I think you should consider it. So I'm interested in the position for all of the reasons that my husband encouraged me to be here tonight. I have the legal background, I have the skill set, I've run for public office in Muskego successfully, and I'm ready to continue serving Muskego. And then when all your neighbors start saying it to you, I think you start to think more and more, okay, this is something I should really think about.
Okay, thanks.
I could explain that I wrote them in the wrong order, but you'll figure it out when they start
So they
going
all
out of
give you
order.
the eyes?
I'm going to make you explain it every time. So obviously, briefly, we don't need you to go through all of it, but tell us a little bit about your background and how you feel it would help you as a municipal judge.
Sure. So after 30 years in the United States Attorney's Office, I put a lot on my resume, a resume that I hadn't written in about 30 years. So I spent about half my career as a federal prosecutor. So I would prosecute criminal cases, which meant that I predominantly was in federal court in front of federal judges, but I also had a state court presence. So if the United States has an interest in mortgages or liens on property, we're in state court for state mortgage for proceedings. So I was in state court for a lot of those instances. So I would say my time in court has definitely set me up to, I guess, know how I think a court should be run. I've been on the receiving end of judges that haven't been so kind. So, it's that you file away what you would never do, and then the judges who have been magnanimous and good listeners and even keeled, you file that away and say, okay, if someday, that's the kind of judge I would want to be. So I think after all of those years appearing in front of all of those different judges at various different levels, I have come to understand how a court can function and, quite frankly, make everybody, nobody walks out winners and losers, but hopefully they walk out feeling that there was justice done. And that's what everybody should be striving for in that courtroom. So I think all of that experience just kind of sets me up to be, I think, definitely a viable candidate here tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening. What qualities do you believe make a successful municipal judge, and how would you use them in the position?
So it's some of the things that I just said. I think it's setting a certain decorum. I think when you walk into a court, you should get a feel for it. And the feel should be, this is sacred space. This is a space where justice is going to happen. People are going to be listened to, understanding. I think some of the best judges I appeared in front of did a really great job taking time with defendants. I mean, the lawyers know what's going on. It's the person whose first time is there or fifth time there, right? To just make sure that, do you have questions? Can I help you understand something? Is there something you need repeated? So that it not just flows, and again, you don't want to bog the system down, but I think that everybody walks out, they might not like what happened, but they're going to understand it and understand that if you did something and it was against a law or an ordinance, there's consequences to it, and then this is the end result. But everybody should feel that they were heard and understood and go home and hopefully say, I didn't like being in municipal court today, but boy, they really ran it well, and I felt that things happened the way they should there.
Thank you.
Well, the way you answered that ties right in with this.
Okay.
How would you handle a defendant who complains that your decisions or rulings are unfair?
So hopefully it wouldn't get to that, right? Hopefully I would have the wherewithal to get to that first point of the understanding, along with the city attorney, who I assume also does a lot of prep work to explain what's going to happen before you get in this courtroom. And there should be an opportunity, which I'm sure there is. Please ask questions. Let's make sure that everybody's on the same page here. What don't you understand? Let's take the time. And to get to that point before the defendant is leaving in a harumph or, is just exasperated.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi. What would you hope to accomplish in a tenure as a municipal judge?
That's a good question. So I don't think my daughter will mind my giving this story, which is my family had experience in municipal court when she got a speeding ticket when she was in high school. And it was this was new. So this was a newer area. I asked if she wanted me to come along, not as her lawyer, because I couldn't represent her at the time, but she said, yes, that would be nice. And the good part, and I'm going to get to the answer here with the story, is the time we had with the city attorney was really instructive, right? So he took the time to get to know her. He took the time to explain why she was there and why the speeding on Woods Road from the high school was a bad idea and how he was sure she wouldn't do it in the future. But he also acknowledged, because she came in, he got the sense, you're never going to be back here. This is unusual for you. This is out of character. So let this be a good learning experience for you. The judge at the time did a really nice job explaining to her what he could and couldn't do, right? What he was allowed to do because of the way that the ordinance is written, what he could do, and she resolved it. But it was also a teaching moment, right? We talked all the way home about how she was going to pay this off, and this was her consequence, not mine, and how she could keep this from happening again. And I think that that's a legacy that every judge wants, right? That when people leave here, they understand that Muskego is a fair city, that it's a city where there are rules and there's ordinances and they're enforced. And if you break them, you're going to either resolve things and come in front of a judge, or you have an opportunity to contest them. But if you do contest them, the facts and consequences, everything better be on your side, because you've got a great city attorney, you've got a judge who's going to enforce things. So I guess my legacy would be to continue more of the same and have people recognize Muskego as the great city it continues to be, with things in place to keep it great, to keep its citizens safe, and to know that if you're here, it's going to be fair if you do something that you maybe shouldn't have done.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, Attorney Warwick. How would you handle defendants who are either unable to pay their fines on time or unable to pay them at all?
So I've done that every day for the last 15 years in the Financial Litigation Unit of the United States Attorney's Office. So the Financial Litigation Unit that I supervised as the attorney for 2 collection agents, basically, we were responsible for the collection of all court-ordered criminal restitution and fines in the Eastern District of Wisconsin criminal cases. As you can imagine, over time, that becomes millions and millions of dollars. And we ran the gamut on every kind of defendant you could imagine. White-collar defendants who had some pretty nice houses but had them all leaned up, or cars that they were smart enough to lease instead of buy. So what I always encouraged the frontline financial litigation agents, and took the position myself, is first of all, you just need to know their financial situation, right? With documentation. So if a defendant can prove up what their financial situation is, you need to work with them, right? And as I always explain to a defendant from my vantage point, it was, look, we're not going away. Your debt's not going away. So the more we can work together to get to a reasonable payment schedule solution, whether it's $10 a month, $50 a month, whatever the case is, we're going to work this out and you're going to get this paid, and then you never have to see us again. So that's the approach I would like to take. So if the statute provides or the ordinance provides that the defendant's financial situation is such that you can have an opportunity for a payment schedule, that's their obligation. They need to get it done, but let's work together to get it done.
Thank you.
Welcome. The city of Muskego has many different ordinances, some of which you may feel are overly onerous. How would you judicate ordinances or ordinance violations you feel are unfair?
So I'm not a part of the legislature, right? That's why we have 3 co-equal branches in the federal government, right? Because they're all the checks and balances, and each should be doing their own part. As a judge, I believe that a judge is there to fulfill a justice role, not there to legislate from the bench. And, if there's an interpretation that maybe wasn't intended, then that should go back to the legislative branch to decide if they want to revise that ordinance. And whether I like it or not, there were certainly some federal offenses I wasn't too fond of either that were a little odd, but I didn't write them, right? I, at that time, prosecuted them, but a judge, that's the role I believe is involved there.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Give me last.
Super.
If you are appointed, what are your thoughts about running for this position in the next election?
so you want me to prognosticate ahead that I get chosen and it goes swimmingly? That's a tough question. I wouldn't have put my paperwork in if I didn't already have that conversation with my husband. So he supported me through 12 years of being on the school board. Many Monday nights where, of course, it's co-equal parenting, but many nights that was his night because I had no idea how long the school board president was going to keep us. So we had that conversation, right? And the conversation was, this is a perfect way to approach this position. So the city gets to try me out. I get to try out the position if I'm chosen, and hopefully it's a win-win. And come the time that papers need to be filed, I'm ready for it. Quite frankly, I also like the idea that it's finishing out a term and that 4 years doesn't loom ahead again, because I think that, what COVID has showed us is we don't know what the future is going to be. So we can only plan as far as we can see. So the long answer to your question is, I would hope that I would be in a position that I would want to run and that the citizens of Muskego would want me to also.
Thank you. Does anyone have any follow-up questions for Mrs. Warwick?
I have a curious one this time.
Yep.
Could you spend more time talking about what a great city attorney we have? Keep it to 5 minutes or 10 minutes or so.
Alderman Engelhardt.
Yeah. So you referred to the fact that some of your neighbors want you to run. What are you going to do when they show up as in your courtroom?
I would respectfully recuse myself if it was a situation that was uncomfortable for them or for me. That would be appropriate.
Thank you.
Yes.
Does anyone else have a follow-up?
I got one real quick. So you just retired. What were your plans before this came along?
So pre-COVID, my plans, my very first career was I was a high school English teacher. And I have to say my time on the school board was amazing. I mean, I know this isn't about the school district, but the school district in Muskego is phenomenal. So my thought was I was going to volunteer at the high school. And I still might do that, but it was more of an involved plan. And then COVID hit and I wasn't so sure, and I was, the vaccine, I didn't know. So they kind of just put a back burner on it for a while, and that was it. I mean, the nice part about retirement, I've lived it for a day now, is that the future's really open, and I'm still fairly young. So it's just an exciting time that I get to decide. Well, now tonight you get to decide, but I get to decide pretty much what I want to do. And that's that was the plan. Again, it still might happen. That and reading a lot, but other than that, no real plans.
Thank you.
Any other questions? This is your opportunity for a closing statement if you'd like.
Just note there's several retirees up here.
Gosh, a closing statement. Again, I feel like I'm in a courtroom.
Pick me.
I tried to really spend actually quite a bit of time on my resume and my cover letter. And I think I said it in my cover letter that there's things that line up in your lives, and sometimes you look at it and go, wow, again, the timing's perfect. This allows me to keep doing, legal stuff. I remember when, so my mother worked all her life for the Internal Revenue Service. So she was in my building. She was in the federal courthouse. And when I was pregnant with my first child, she was so fearful that I was going to quit and then not go back. And I think, after maybe a few weeks, she said, Lisa, the federal government working where you do is going to be your best job in the world. And I know that kids are important to you, but don't leave it, because you'll never know if you can get back in. And I think that this is going to be it for you. And her advice was just perfect. And there's those few things that pop up in your life and you're like, okay, municipal court judge. Never thought of being a judge, never really wanted to be a judge, but okay, this works. It's in the city I love. I've run for public office before successfully. It was kind of sort of fun. I had great support from the community. I loved being on the school board, and it all would translate to this. So for me, it would be wonderful But you've got great candidates. I don't think you're going to go wrong with your choice no matter what. And it's really exciting that you have multiple candidates. I think it says a lot for who you are, who you all are, who the city is, and for the great job that the current judge has done, that people want this. So you should be very proud. So would I love this? Absolutely. Will I be very upset if I don't get it? No, because again, you have great choices. I hope it's me. I think you will be well served if it's me. And we'll see tonight what you decide. So thank you.
Thank you. You can go back in the room and wait until we have one more candidate after you. You can wait and come back in, and then they'll be doing the vote. You can go home, watch it on YouTube, do whatever you want, but most candidates will be. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelley, I'm going to wait about another 5 minutes, and then we can bring them in.
Yep.
Hello.
Hi. Have a seat. I'm Mayor Rick Petfalski. Nice to meet you. I'm just going to go through the process, explain what we're going to do, and then everyone will introduce themselves. So what will happen is each of the aldermen and myself will each ask you one question. And I'm not sure, is that, tap that at the front of it? Yep, it's on. Perfect.
I just feel a little short where I'm sitting.
Okay.
See?
There we go.
You look fine. So each of the aldermen will ask you a question, including myself. And then after all the questions are asked, they'll have an opportunity for a follow-up question with you. If there are follow-ups, or if there isn't, after they're done with that, then you have an opportunity for a closing statement if you'd like. You are the last candidate, so after you, they will go through a voting process. And if the first round of voting has a majority or 4 or more aldermen voting for one candidate, that candidate will be the one that will be appointed. If no one gets 4 votes, the top 2 vote getters will then go into a runoff vote to decide who's going to be appointed, because it needs a majority of council for the vote. Any questions?
No.
All right. So we'll start with introductions.
Alderman Rob Wolf from District 1.
Bob Hamill, District 2.
John Terrence, District 3.
Tom Kapusta, District 4.
I'm Jeff Warchel. I'm the city attorney here.
John Engelhardt, District 5.
Kevin Kubaki, District 6.
Eileen Madden, District 7.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you. Alderman Wolf will start with the first question.
Hi, how are you doing?
How am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm a little nervous because it's been a while since I've been through an interview process, and this is a little bit intimidating the way it's set up.
I would think. It's like a Senate hearing.
Although I'm going to keep looking at, I'm bad with names initially, but faces, I'm good. I'm going to look at you because you're casually dressed.
Should he put his sunglasses on? Okay, I'll start off with the questions. Why are you interested in the position of becoming a municipal judge, and why did you apply for this position?
So interestingly enough, your sitting judge, Shelley Grogan, reached out to me about the position. I was not even aware of it. And so I had some discussions with her, which piqued my interest, and some discussions with my husband about it as well, to see what he thought about it. Because I do have a full-time job as an assistant district attorney in Milwaukee County, so this would be something that would be on top of that. And it would really be a nice opportunity to serve my community here. I have been a resident of Muskego since May of 2014, when my husband and I moved into the house we built. And so I think it would be a nice opportunity to do that. In addition, when I get to the point where I can actually retire from my full-time job, it would be nice to still continue to do some legal practice in some way, shape, or form on a part-time basis. And so I think that would also, this job would lend itself to that as well.
So they go out of order because I wrote the questions in the wrong order.
I'm not sure who to look at.
It's me, over here.
Mr. Casual.
Casual guy. I wear it proud. Okay. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you feel it would help you as a municipal judge.
So initially, I didn't even know I wanted to go to law school. That wasn't even on my radar screen for a while. But when I was a juvenile parole agent for the state of Wisconsin, I was testifying in a lot of court hearings for either waiver into adult court or extensions of supervision orders and those kinds of things. And so that's where I started becoming interested in the law, because I watched an assistant DA basically restating everything I said in my testimony during a closing argument. So my interest in the law became clear then, and so I applied. But prior to that point, I had worked in human services for 10 years. I worked in a variety of capacities. I worked in direct care with developmentally disabled adults. During college, started off part-time and went full-time. I worked in Madison for Tellurian Community Incorporated, which is a facility that provided services, day treatment services. I worked in day treatment there, as well as the AOTA treatment facility. This is all with juveniles. And I worked at ARC Pre-Release Center in Madison as well, which was a facility for women transitioning out of prison. And from there, I basically went into juvenile corrections, was a social worker at Southern Oaks Girls School, and a juvenile parole agent as well prior to that. I have a lot of public service background. I've worked in, I feel like I've worked in a variety of settings and with a lot of different people. I think I would have a good temperament for this position. I think I could be fair and impartial. I do bring a lot of just personal experience from those jobs, I think, to this job. I would be able to bring that to this, and I think it would be helpful.
Good evening. What qualities do you believe make a successful municipal judge, and how would you use them in the position?
So kind of going back to what I was just saying, I think you need to have a good temperament. I think you need to be patient. You need to be fair. You need to be impartial. I think those are the kind of qualities that you really should have to administer those duties. I think I do have those qualities. I'm also very detail-oriented, so I'm very well prepared as well. I mean, if you talk to anybody I work with, I'm very well prepared, and I'm still taking my court files home. We've been doing Zoom court for over a year now. I literally go in the office, I take all of my court files home every week. I'm bringing my banker boxes home. So I have everything in front of me that I feel that I need to be prepared for my cases in court right now. And I take them back and I start all over. So I literally have been carting my files home for a year, where a lot of people are just working virtually. So, I mean, I'm really hardworking, and I think all of those things would lend themselves well to this position.
Thank you.
How would you handle a defendant that complains that your decision or ruling was unfair?
Well, I have not been in this position, obviously, because I've not been a judge before, but I've had to work with, in the past when I was a juvenile parole agent, I had to work with kids and make decisions about their future in terms of whether I would revoke them and things like that. I give out offers on a daily basis in my cases that I prosecute now in juvenile court. And, I would respond that I thought it was a fair ruling. And, I don't know personally what the step above that is that a person can go. I mean, what do they file a complaint with the Judicial Commission? I'm not sure, because I've not been a judge before, but, whatever steps are available for them to pursue relief beyond my decision, if they want to appeal it, I would notify them of those opportunities. If I were in this position, I will quickly learn all of that because I'm a quick study.
Hi.
Hi.
All right.
I feel like you're not getting as much attention as these folks over here.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine in spite of all of us up here. What do you hope to accomplish in your tenure if you get this job as a municipal judge?
Boy, again, this job was not on my radar screen until Shelley and I started talking about it. I mean, obviously, I'd want to, handle the caseload with efficiency and, like I said, fairly and impartially. I would want to, I guess I'm not sure quite how to answer that, not having been in the position, but I would just want to make sure that the caseload is managed and appropriately and efficiently, and that there's not a backlog. I know there was a backlog because of COVID, but generally speaking, I don't want there to be a backlog of cases, and I know it's important to try to keep those moving. So I apologize. I'm not sure quite how to answer that question any better.
Well, thank you.
Okay. All right. Attorney Hensey, how would you address a defendant who either was unable to pay a fine on time or unable to pay at all?
I don't know if something like community service is an option for adults. I know that's something that we offer for kids. That might be an option if that's available. Again, this is something I'd have to learn with the municipal code, what the actual options are available. But I understand that some people are in financial circumstances that would be very difficult for them to pay a fine. So I would try to work with them to find another alternative as, a sentence or consequence or.
Thank you.
Welcome. The city of Muskego has many different ordinances, some of which you may feel are overly onerous. How will you adjudicate ordinance violations that you feel are unfair?
Another fine question. For someone with no experience with ordinance violations, other than the few that we see now and again from the sheriff's office that come our way, I'm primarily, obviously, prosecuting state crimes right now. I think you really just got to take everything on a case-by-case basis and, make decisions appropriately based on what facts are before you. And I guess without a specific example of what an onerous ordinance violation is, it's difficult to actually be specific about this for me, I think.
Okay. Thank you.
You get me last. So if appointed, what are your thoughts about running for the position at the next election?
Yeah, I did see that was part of what would happen. I understand that. Again, something I discussed with my husband because we're a family unit. It's something I think I could take on. I understand that you have to get signatures, 200 signatures to get on the ballot, and I'm certainly a hardworking person and able and willing to run around and do what needs to be done in order to pursue that. So I'm not going to shy away from that at all. I certainly feel like I am capable of handling it.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any follow-up questions? Seeing none, this is your opportunity. If you'd like to make a closing statement, you're welcome to.
Like I do in trial. Honestly, I'm a pretty well-rounded person. I think, I'm easy to get along with. I'm friendly. I have a really significant background in public service. Much of it's not in the resume because you have to cut off at some point. But I do think that lends itself well to this position, which is a public service position as well. And it would be a nice opportunity to serve the community in which I reside.
All right, thank you very much. So you were the last candidate for the interview, so I'm going to adjourn the meeting for about 5 minutes, let people kind of go through their notes and look through everyone's resumes, and then we're going to invite everyone else back in here, and they're going to go through and do a vote at that point.
Okay.
And so you're welcome to either wait in here, if you want to go back there, or come back in 5 minutes, it's up to you. But
thank you, I appreciate your time.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that being said, I'll adjourn until, we'll say 6:30. Give you guys a chance to kind of go through your notes, look at the resumes, and then we'll go back into session and take a vote. Try to refrain from talking amongst each other while we're doing this, though, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Guilty.
All right, we're back in session. So before we get into what we need to do, first of all, I want to thank each and every one of you for going through this process. As one of you will find out, public service is actually, two of you have done this already, been part of the community in public service, and it's one of the most rewarding things you can do. Short of running for election, doing what you're doing is also putting yourself out there, and that's not easy to do either. So I thank you for caring enough about your community to step forward and put your name out there for this. So regardless of what they choose tonight, I thank you. So the process, what's going to happen is each of the aldermen, you each have 3 different colored papers in front of you. If you would take the green paper and indicate your vote on who your selection is, also initial that piece of paper, and then bring them forward to me. If we do have a majority vote, that will be the appointee. If we do not have a majority vote, the top 2 vote getters will go into a runoff vote.
The Academy Awards, you know. Envelope, please.
All right, we have a decision. Thank you to all of you, and congratulations, Ms. Warwick. You've been selected as our next municipal judge. Actually, you'd get sworn in August, but you will have between now and August to learn every detail of Judge Grogan's court and decide what you want to keep and what you want to change. I thank all of you for putting your name forward. This appointment is only until this spring. If you still have interest in the position, I encourage you to put your name in for the ballot. Your name, you need to start collecting signatures beginning of December, and have that all turned in by, I believe, the first Tuesday of January.
First Tuesday in January.
Our election expert's right next to me.
Yeah.
So. I hate to get around it.
Well, Jeff, he's going to help me.
First Tuesday in January.
Yes. So, and I encourage you to do that as well. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, moving on with the agenda. Yeah, we don't get to go home. We have another meeting yet.
Yeah.
Any communications or any miscellaneous business authorized? Hearing none, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
John first.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Committee of the Whole is adjourned at 6:35.